Guys, I'm going to be candid. I don't want to make this video. You probably don't want to watch this video, but I feel like deep down I need to make this video just so I can talk about everything that went on and go forward from here and try to figure out what's happening next for Kansas State basketball. Guys, this season sucked. It was a failure. It was a top 5 horrible moment in my K-State basketball experience, my K-State fandom. It wasn't great. It was up there for one of the most disappointing things I've seen recently. I've got a lot of takeaways from the season as a whole. Obviously, the loss to Arizona State is what caps it off, but realistically, there's 1,000 different things I'm going to talk about in today's video, and I want to put that out there right now. I love Kansas State. I bleed purple. Every day, I pray that Kansas State does something good. This season has been a constant kick in the crotch for everybody in the fan base, and I get that. I'm not going to sit here and try to make it personal, try to do whatever. I'm going to talk about how they failed either as a staff, as a playership, as whatever. There was failure this season for Kansas State. We're going to talk about all that and more. Quick reminder, if you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button. I'm not going to force you. We stink at basketball, so I get it's tough to watch K-State content right now. But it does help me out immensely, and I appreciate all of you who do. Now, to start things off, guys, I owe you an apology. I owe every one of you watching an apology. You on your phone, you on the computer, you however else you're watching this, I owe you an apology. I absolutely gassed this team up. I bought into the hype. I saw the names. I saw, okay, Coleman Hawkins, massive name. Doug McDaniel, massive. Ugana Yenso, Achor. Everything's going to be great with this team. There's so many NBA players on this team. I bought into all of that. And I was wrong. I messed it up. And I'm not sitting here saying that it didn't make sense on paper. I thought it made great sense on paper. The reality is such a vast difference than what we just experienced. I mean, looking at this team, you saw, okay, Achor's a fringe NBA guy. Coleman Hawkins is an All-American level forward. Doug McDaniel can be the best point guard in basketball if he gets things right and can get to that consistency level. There's also the glaring holes of what if Achor doesn't like his role coming off the bench? What if Coleman's knees are still bothering him? What if Doug McDaniel doesn't lock in and can't find consistency? What happens then? That was the reality, and that stinks. It really does. But I just wanted to start off by apologizing to you guys because I realized throughout the transfer portal process, like, it is so easy to buy into names of what's going to happen. Like, I could sit here right now and say, okay, next year we're going to have 5 dudes, 3 of which are going to be NBA players, 2 of which are, incredible role players. We're going to retain this guy and add this guy. And, like, it's so easy to gas yourself up. And I let that get to me. I went over the top. That's on me. This season's going to be different. I'm not going to sit here and say I won't get gassed up about the team, but I want to look analytically about this thing. I don't want to look at it just like a big name type situation. Names won't do you anything if you don't get out there and play some basketball. And I want to clarify, that's not to take a shot at the guys I mentioned. I'm not taking a shot at Doug McDaniel. I'm not taking a shot at Coleman Hawkins. I'm not saying this guy, but the examples that were crystal clear to us in the sense that, like, I think even those that know about basketball know nothing about basketball, myself included. I look at this team on paper heading to the season. I said, David Gassan's pretty solid. He's been good for us in the past, but I don't know how much of a difference maker he's going to be. He's not going to be a top 3 player for your team. It's going to be Coleman Hawkins, Doug McDaniel, whoever else you want to mention there. Maybe he's the 3rd best player. And I was wrong. He's the best player on your team. He's been leaps and bounds better than everybody else. Doug McDaniel and Coleman Hawkins could not find consistency. Now we're looking at a reality where Coleman Hawkins might be out the rest of the season, and his college career comes to an end on a team that's highlight was a 6-game win streak. That stinks. It absolutely stinks because as a fan base, you look at that and you say, Coleman Hawkins, one of the best players in college basketball, just a motivational dude that's awesome on social media, awesome on the basketball court. He'll be the perfect addition for this team and this fan base that cares about their players and coaches so intensely. Instead, it burns out like a dying star. This team came apart at the seams, and it's not to say that they started off hot and lost it. It's not to say that they figured it out and lost it. They just genuinely were too inconsistent every single night to string it together. And you can blame it on NIL. You can blame it on the transfer portal. You can blame it on players, coaches, whatever. At the end of the day for K-State basketball, you didn't measure up to what your expectations were. You were not good enough. Doesn't matter who you blame, who you say, what's next, what's ahead. You did not get the recipe right. Whether that's a roster standpoint, whether that's an NIL standpoint, whether that's coaching, whether it's this, that. Any reason you want to justify, it did not work out. That's the biggest takeaway. This did not work out. You had the money to make it work. You didn't have anything else that helped to contribute to fix things. And I know that you can still win the Big 12 tournament and your season's not over. I'm kind of at the point where this season's over. And I'm still going to watch because I love Kansas State. I'm loyal to 3 letters. I don't care who's on the basketball court. I don't care who's coaching. I want this team to be good, this university to be good, this group of people to achieve something positive. I'm still going to watch because I support these dudes. I know that they stink at times. I know that it's not working out at times, but this is happening. I'm still going to watch because it's the K-State fan of me. It's the guy I am. And that's the whole basis of this channel. I wanted to make this channel 2 years ago because I cared so much about Kansas State that I wanted to pitch that to you guys and share that excitement. It'd be pretty damn lame of me if I only shared the excitement and just said, nah, the losses don't happen. If I don't talk about them, it doesn't happen. I'm not numb to this. This sucks. It sucks to cover a losing team. It sucks to cover a team that underwhelmed so severely. It sucks to have all these different things where a guy who I thought was going to be a top 3 player on this team. I thought he was going to be an NBA player this year. Just a full circle moment. Super cool to see for a guy like Chor. And instead, he was off the team before conference play even started. That stinks. That's a kick in the crotch. But let me get into specifics because I know I'm speaking my truth here, but I just want to kind of continue that narrative of what I want to say and get off my chest. After the postgame press conference, or in the postgame press conference, Coach Tang was asked about, hey, what went wrong about there in his opening statement, and he basically just took all the blame. He said, this is my fault. I didn't give him the game plan correctly. I could have game planned better. I needed to provide that. Our staff needs to do a better job. It's not on the players. I get that. I won't call you out for taking the blame. That's not a bad dude thing to do, to fall on the sword. What I will say is this. Later in the same press conference, Coach Tang talked about what went wrong, and he just basically said, shots didn't fall. And I agree with that. Shots didn't fall. You didn't have very many bad looks throughout the game, to be perfectly honest with you. Obviously, you just didn't have the energy. You didn't compete in certain spots, but you out-rebounded Arizona State by a lot. And you looked like you won the foul differential. You looked like you won the hustle differential, and the team couldn't put it together, and you got blown out. That stinks. So if the shots just weren't falling, what about the game plan was incorrect that you gave them? Like, I'm not trying to take this to say the players are wrong or Coach Tang's wrong, but what aspect of the game plan wasn't delivered right? What is impairing the ability to game plan correctly? Because I get that Coleman Hawkins isn't on the court. I'm not going to try to say that didn't throw off the whole thing. I totally agree with that. But if you can do better to game plan for this team, and the only thing that went wrong was shots didn't fall, you clearly game planned it the correct way and shots didn't fall. It's tough to fall on the sword one way and then also say, okay, we could have done everything else right, just this didn't work out. It doesn't make sense, and I wanted to say that. So I'm not sitting here saying I need to have a detailed explanation of what went wrong and why this happened, because sometimes shots definitely don't fall, and it's nobody's fault. It's just, hey, we got good looks, they didn't fall. The basketball gods weren't on our side. I get that. What I felt was highlighted best in the press conference came from David Gasson, a dude who works his freaking tail off every single night. You know he's going to give energy no matter what happens. If he's outmatched in the low block, if he's the best player in the court, David Gasson's energy will still be there. That's not going to be a question that anybody's wondering about. What frustrates me is he talked about it and said, hey, the offensive stretches where we go for these long 5-6 minute lapses of why we can't hit buckets, I feel like sometimes we get stagnant on offense where guys aren't moving, guys are standing there ball watching and just hoping that someone else creates. That's not winning basketball. And I'll say this because there's a topic about retention of who you want back, what you want to happen next year, what this is going to happen, and I'll expand on this as this goes on, but Kansas State doesn't have enough dudes that want to make the winning plays of basketball. The little details that add up to a win in the end of it. If you're going to get 1% better every day, at some point you get to 100. But you can't skip from 1% to 16% back to 10%. Like, that's a dumb metaphor, but the point of what I'm saying is, like, K-State needs dudes that hate playing losing basketball more than losing itself. Let me explain because it's a little bit of a here and there smokescreen type thing. Winning basketball is what? It's moving. It's out hustling. It's rebounding even if you don't think you have a chance to get the board. It's moving without the basketball. It's setting off ball screens. It's doing anything you can to give your team an advantage. Doesn't matter if you're the first guy off the bench, if you're the 13th guy sitting there clapping. What can I do to make my team better? And Kansas State doesn't have enough of those dudes. One guy, two guy, three guys, you have a full team of 13 dudes. If two guys are giving winning effort, but the other guys aren't, you're not going to win many basketball games. I know it's contagious and it gets guys to buy in if one guy shows up and does their thing, but we need to find guys, whether that's guys that you retain, whether that's guys you add to the portal, add through high school classes. We need guys that are addicted to being in the gym, that work their tails off even when nobody's watching. Like, if you want to perform well in front of thousands, you have to outwork everybody when no one's watching. What you need is guys that hate playing losing basketball more than losing itself, and right now you don't have that. You maybe have a couple guys on any given night, but consistently you haven't had that. And I mean, in the words of Jerome Tang himself, at some point you have to have dudes. You don't have enough dudes this season. You don't have the right dudes in place. And Coleman Hawkins was a dude on paper. Doug McDaniel's a dude on paper. David Gasson became a dude in front of everyone's eyes. Brendan Hausen at times was a dude. Max Jones, same thing. You have not had enough consistency from your stars. They haven't played like stars. They just haven't. You've had role players that have stepped up and had massive nights. You've had this guy's star, but every single given night, you haven't had stars across the board. You've had hit or misses, and that's not the way you win basketball. That's not how you play consistent winning basketball. The staff knows that. The players know that. Nobody's going to sit here and bellyache about that. But what frustrates me is it felt like that year with Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel. And this is unfair because they're both NBA players. Naquan Tomlin's killing it in the NBA now, going to the Cavs on a 10-day contract. You found guys that absolutely were addicted to the process of basketball. You have to love the sport of basketball. You can't just be playing it for NIL compensation. You can't be playing it for a stock of maybe I'll go to the NBA one day. You have to love this thing. You have to show up to the gym at 5:30 in the morning, get 500 shots in before practice if you want to shine, if you want to star. And now you're at a point where realistically Coleman Hawkins is likely done for the year, at worst done for the next 2 games, or at best done for the next 2 games. That stinks. There's been guys occasionally that have made the right effort. There's been coaches that make the right efforts. There's been this and that. But if you can't consistently show up for yourself or the fan base you play for, you will not win basketball games and you will not have my respect. I'll say it that way. You need to earn the respect of these fans, the love of these fans. And it's not just to say polarizing stuff like we win, we all love you, it's great, and we lose, we all hate you, it's bad. That's not the way this stuff works. You need to work every single waking moment. It's the way this stuff happens. And I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm not a basketball coach, though I want to be one day. I'm not the guy that has the secret card to figure this stuff out. But what you need to do going forward is to find guys that hate that stuff, man. You need to absolutely hate, not just losing. You need to not just love winning. You need to win every single second of the day. Not just the what's next 1-0 situation, but if you want to go down that path, you don't have guys that are winning every day. You have guys that take a win for granted and then say, you know what, I did good today. Let's go out to the bar. Or you have guys that say, you know what, I did good today. Let's go get Cane's instead of eating the specific meal plan I have set up. Quick break. If you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, 63% of the people watching this video right now are currently not subscribed to the YouTube channel. And feel free absolutely to ignore this and skip this, whatever the case is. But those of you that are watching right now and are unsubscribed, be sure and consider hitting that subscribe button if you love Kansas State, if you appreciate the channel. It's a great way to support me as I continue to grow on this journey, and it's also incredible to bring more K-State fans in like yourself on a consistent basis to see more of my K-State content. Once again, if you're in that 63% or if you're in the alternative in the 37%, I love and appreciate you. Back to the Cats. You have guys that take wins for granted, or coaches that take wins for granted, or people that pat themselves on the back before saying, okay, what's the next step I have to take? I will say it this way for retention. I don't care what your name is. I don't care how you get here. I don't care if you're a coach, if you're a player, if you're a fan. If you fit that quality, be on Kansas State. Show up for K-State. Show up for the Wildcats. Show up for the Purple. Show up for Lavender, White, whatever you need to do. Manhattan, Kansas is a place where dudes work hard to get what they earn. And I'm not sitting here saying that everybody on the roster doesn't have that. I'm not saying that the coaches don't have that. But you lose sight of that very, very fast when things go south. Like, you lose 8 games in a row, not one dude wants to play winning basketball. If 2 or 3 guys are playing winning basketball but the other 11 aren't, you're just not going to win. You know, if 2 guys are bailing water while the other dudes are all sinking on the ship, you're not going to continue to get that boat lifted. Like, it takes effort from every single person, whether that's the head coach, the assistant coaches, the players, the stars, the role players, the bench guys. You need every single person to show up, and Kansas State doesn't have that right now. Simple as that. You do not have the right guys. Whether that's building the roster, you found the wrong guys, or guys showed up, they thought they wanted to work, they thought they wanted to be one, and they didn't. If someone's complaining about something out there, K-State has the saying that's, you said you wanted to be one. This season has showed me that there's not a lot of guys that want to be one on this team. But that doesn't mean it can't change, because I know that there's going to be people that say, I'm going to name drop specific people, where it's like, I want Max Jones back, I want Moby back, I want Brendan back, I want Doug back, I want David Castillo. You could name every single person on this team. I'm at the point where I genuinely do not mind who shows back up. If you want to work and do the nitty-gritty things that don't show up on the stat sheet but affect winning, I'm all for you coming back. I don't care what your name is. I don't care how many stars you had. I don't care how you got to Kansas State. If you want to show up and work and earn the trust and respect from the fan base, come be a part of the team. But if not, and you're saying, well, you know, I like the idea of being a star, but I don't like the effort of, okay, I don't need to show up in practice. I don't need to show up in my classes. I don't need to do this. I don't need to show up for fan base autograph signings. I don't need to do this. If you're one of those dudes, get off the team, man. Get off the staff. If you don't want to show up and work, don't be here. I'm trying to sit here and say one person specifically is that way or 2 people are that way, but it takes 1 or 2 guys and you have a losing culture. How do you change the culture? You get the right guys involved. And the blessing, the positive side of the transfer portal era is you can absolutely change everything in one season. Coach Tang in his first year was one of the best coaches in college basketball, won the award for being the best coach in college basketball that year. 2 years later, we're sitting here with half the fan base saying this guy stinks. This is the stuff that changes fast. Every decision you make contributes to the overall perception, overall persona around your program. If you win games, you're going to recruit better. If you lose games, it's going to stink for recruiting. Your NIL budget's going to drop. This is going to change. This is going to change. Everything matters. Every single decision, every single step of the way matters. And you have guys that are skipping steps. You have coaches that are skipping steps. This team, this effort, this group needs to change. Continuity is key, genuinely, but culture is what wins games. Culture is what changes programs. However you build the culture, because I think there's guys on this team that have good culture in them. I love Max Jones. I love Brendan Hawson. I love Moby. There's a lot of guys on this roster that I think could very, very much be successful at Kansas State, given the right role, given the right scenario, given the right time and effort. There's guys I want back. There's guys that I think are already halfway out the door. The reality of the situation is I want a good basketball team. I don't need it to be a team that wins a national championship immediately. Yeah, I want that, but it is better as a fan to cheer for a winning team, for a team that cares, for a team that shows up. If this team, and I'll say this, I know Coach Tang's had a lot to talk about where He's basically said, hey, this team started off as individuals, then they became a group of guys that were playing for each other. Now they're playing for Kansas State. If losing by 16 points with very bad effort to Arizona State, who stinks, is playing for Kansas State, then I don't want you to play for Kansas State. That's not the way this thing's going. You need effort, you need heart, you need hustle, you need intensity, and I saw 2 or 3 guys doing that against Arizona State. Not the whole team. These aren't things that you have to be super talented to do. You know, going the extra mile doesn't mean you have to be 6'7" to do it. Being the first one to dive for the basketball, going up for a rebound even if you don't have the shot. These aren't things that you need to be physically or athletically gifted to do. You just need the desire and the will to want. If you're going to compete, if you're going to show up, show me. Prove it. You said you wanted to be one, prove it. That's for everybody. That goes for coaches, that goes for the staff, that goes for, the team, that goes for recruiting, that goes for everything you wanted to do. If you want us to believe in you, if you want to show us that you can actually do this, you have to do it. Doesn't matter how you didn't do it. Doesn't matter how you got here. You need to show up and do it. And this one, effectively, this video, even if they went out, I don't think they make the tournament right now. If they went out if they get to 20 games by some stretch of the imagination, if they win the Big 12 tournament, they're obviously in. If you win out the last 4 games, it'll inspire confidence. I don't think you get off the bubble, or at least I don't think you get into the winning side of the bubble without multiple wins in the Big 12 tournament. So this isn't to trash everybody. This isn't to crush the program, to say we need change, we need this, we need this. I just need someone to step up and show me what they're going to do. That's what I need to see. Whether that's Coach Tang, whether that's the players, whether that's, anything that, you could justify to say why we're not doing so good. How you change this is by you taking the extra effort. I'm sure that none of the coaches, none of the players are watching this, but that's kind of my message to the overall group. The fan base, I'm not going to tell you how to be a fan. I know there's some BS where dudes go keep it personal and do stupid crap like that and call out staff and players and whatever and families. That stuff all sucks. I won't tell you how to be a fan. You cheer, you celebrate, you be a jerk, do whatever you're going to do. But just know that when everything is going right, not everything's perfect. When everything's going wrong, not everything sucks. There's a middle ground that every single one of us can find, and I'm challenging you guys to listen to that middle part at times. Because I still do think there's a chance where this basketball team can take a turn. Not this season, I'm not saying that. This season's a wash, it's over. Stick a fork in them, they're cooked. But we've seen it before, the transfer portal can change everything very, very fast. If you're going to build this culture, show me the guys that want to stick around to be a part of the culture and add more dudes that complement them to build the right team. That's what I want to say. That'll do it for today's video. I'm winding down because I'll probably say the same thing for another 30 minutes if I don't. That's going to do it. It's been a disappointing season. I understand if you're pissed. I understand if you're mad. I understand if you're whatever you want to justify. I get it. I'm right there with you. This team was not good. It was a failure. They need to take the right steps going forward. However it needs to be corrected, I want to see it happen. That's the message for Kansas State basketball. How are you going to fix this? Show us, and you'll have our trust.